The video you're about to watch is me installing power stop drum brakes on a 2000 Jeep Cherokee. Now, I bought these power stop brakes with my own money. It's not sponsored. They didn't give me the brakes, so you're going to get my true feelings on power stop and power stop brakes and whether they work or not, or whether or not you should put them on your car. Enjoy the video. Hey, it's Rob. Welcome back to Axel's Garage. We're out here with the 2000 Jeep Cherokee. This one is Cosmo. Yes, we have two of them. Check the playlist out. We got two identical 2000 Jeep Cherokees. One's Wanda, one's Cosmo. Something to do with some cartoon. The kids name them. I don't know. Anyway, little Steve-O has been driving this one. And a couple of videos ago, you might recall, he blew a brake line, the front to rear brake line. So I went and switched cars with him, picked this one up and drove it home with just the front brakes because the rear line was blown. And you know, it was a little extra stopping because it was just on the fronts as far as I felt it. So we replaced that brake line and bled the brakes out. And while I had it up in the air, I started up, threw it in gear, and just let the wheel spin at idle. I didn't give it any gas, just let the wheel spin and put my foot on the brake. One side slowly stopped, that was the right rear, and the left rear just kept spinning. So my hunch was, and I knew they were bled well, my hunch was that they were either completely worn out or they were never adjusted properly, or the self-adjusters had stopped working. It's a Jeep, rusty self-adjusters, that could very well be. We haven't had these drums off before. We've had the wheels off, so we put, you know, a little, you'll see a little white lube around the lip where the wheel sits on, where the axle pokes through to the drum. And that's only because we've had them, but I don't recall ever taking the drums off and checking these rear brakes. So we knew we were going to do them anyway. So what I'm thinking is we either have brakes that are shot, out of adjustment, or the adjusters are completely bound up, or a combination of one, two, or all three. Either way, we got a set of brakes just in case we need them. We're going to pull these apart. What I did notice from driving it after I fixed the line was my pedal came back, of course, but it was still seemed to be a little bit of a labored braking, for lack of a better term. I had to give it a decent amount of pedal effort, and it seemed like all my braking was coming from the front, so I don't think these rear brakes are doing a thing anyway. We got the car up in the air on jack stands. Don't give me a hard time. I got two jack stands, big jack stands under it. It's up in the air, and we're going to dig into these brakes. If you haven't done drum brakes in a while, it'll probably be a good video for you. If you're a drum brake guy or an older guy that's done drums, well, it's a brake shop. So you really shouldn't need a whole lot of tools to get these apart. The drum should come right off, but it's a Jeep. If you have an available air hammer, pounding in between here sometimes helps break the rust up. If you have a puller, a drum puller, which I don't have an available air hammer. I have an air hammer, it doesn't really work well. I should probably get a new one. Even a Harbor Freight one would help in situations like this, or just a regular hammer. I'm not too concerned with these drums. They're probably rusty crusty inside. I have a feeling everything in here is going to be rusty crusty. So we got new, hopefully we got new everything. But I'm going to try to give it some bangs and see if I can get it to break free from the rust. I don't think the shoes are so far out that they're hooked on the drums, which happens sometimes. Sometimes the shoes will wear into the drum and you'll get a little ridge on the inside, and that's why you have trouble pulling them off, and you might have to back off the adjusters. I don't think that's the case here. I think it's just rusted up. It doesn't seem to be moving too much. Be real careful if you're going to plan on reusing the drums about banging on the edge. It's really easy to crack the edge off. A dead blow hammer is usually a better choice. Now, if you're a Jeep guy, you're used to this. It's never straightforward and easy. All right, looks like I'm gonna have to go to a heavier hammer. Moving on up to the dead blow. Not doing much. A little lump hammer. There we go. Little lump hammer did it. Alright, so the brake shoes themselves don't look horrible. Neither do the inside of the drums, really. They are very shiny and smooth with some cracking in them. Fronts went out a little more than the backs, which is kind of normal. I just think they're probably way out of adjustment, and the star adjusters on the bottom are probably shot. So let's rip them apart and put new brakes in. So if you have a pair of brake spring pliers, I think these come in handy on most of the brake jobs. Hooking the spring and popping them off. What I like to do with the springs is I like to take the springs, and I'll show you when I'm done, but I'm going to put the drum on the ground and I'm going to lay the springs on the drum the way they came off. Or you could take a picture with your phone, which is a great idea as well. Before you start taking them off, just snap a picture so you know how everything went. Just in case you have any doubt, if you do both sides at a time. If you don't do both sides at a time, then don't worry too much about it, because the other side is a mirror image. So you take those two main springs off first, and then what I like to do at this point is, you got your cable. This cable here is for your self-adjuster. You can see how tight this cable is right now. It's supposed to pull up on the self-adjuster. It's probably shot. Let's see if I can move the camera down. What you could do now is take the shoes and flop them off to get the bottom springs out. So you got your cable that goes up along the top lug there, the pivot lug, comes down around and grabs down on your adjuster, and if you move this out of the way, you should be able to turn that adjuster. This one doesn't turn at all, so we know that it was not working at all. And then you can use a set of I don't know what these are called, but they remove there's two different sizes. The red is usually the one that you always use. The bigger one. I have come across having to use the small one from time to time, but it's like a little quarter turn spring. So it's this pin that goes through, and then it slides into this and quarter turns and then pulls back, and that's what keeps the brake shoes against the backing plates. Right now you should be able to peel off at least one side, and the springs on the bottom will come loose. And then you can see the way those springs was set up on the bottom. So you got this spring that goes across from the front to the back is how it hooks in. You got your cable here that hooks on your adjuster lever, and then you got your star adjuster here. And the part that fell out was this little guy here that goes up in a hole on the shoe, and it holds the cable like that as it goes up around to the top pivot. And pretty much what happens is, when you're going backwards, the shoes as an assembly are going to move a little bit when you put your foot on the brake, and they're going to move a little bit, and if they move enough for this lever to move one of the teeth on the adjuster, it'll adjust them out a little bit. If it doesn't move it to the next tooth, then the brake shoes are far enough apart to or close enough to the drum. If they move out so much that it hits a tooth, then this lever is going to hold on to the tooth and hold it in place so that it stays adjusted all the way out. A lot of times what will happen is these will be completely frozen, and we'll see when we get this one out how frozen it is. So here's that adjuster, and it just got a spring just to hold tension on it on the bottom. That's just to hold it in place so it doesn't come off. All right, now you got this top spring. You can grab with your brake spring pliers, or you can just take it down and relieve all the pressure from it, or you can grab it with a pair of needle nose and try to jerk it off. At this point, it's easier just to take the shoe assembly out. Now, this little slot here, all right, is where your where this lever that attaches to your parking brake cable fits into the shoe, so that when you pull your parking brake, it's going to actuate the parking brake. It's going to bring the shoes out and hold it. And then going across the top is like a balancer rod that's got a spring on it, and this rod, it's got a narrow end on the front side and a fat end on the back side, because the back side's got to grab this and the brake shoe. The front side's only got to grab the brake shoe. The spring with the little hook end down. All right, and just remember that when you're taking it apart. Hook end down, narrow side there, wide side there, and it's going to go back in the same exact way. This does not come in a hardware kit, so I usually take this into the wire wheel and I clean this up. All right, now on the brake shoes, now that they're apart, you could sort of just fold them over and get that spring out. On the bottom, that's this spring here. Lay it across the bottom there. Okay, and here's your adjuster mechanism. Now, I don't know if this lever is going to come in the brake parts kit, but you could see how it goes through the brake shoe in a hole. Sometimes in certain makes and models, there could be a little C or an E clip on the other side of it. This one, it just pushes through, and this little spring bar holds it its tension. So probably just tapping it out with a hammer. I tapped it with the hammer and should be able to pry it the rest of the way with the screwdriver. If it's rusted up, it's going to be in there pretty good. Looks like I'm going to need like a little punch or something to get this all the way out, and you're going to get that out. Now, if this does not come in the new hardware kit, what I will do is I'll take the spring off, and I'll bring it over to the wire wheel also, and I will wire wheel it up. Now here's the star adjuster. The front pivot, okay, fell out, so that's not rusted, but the part that screws in, very tight, not horrible, but it's tight. So I don't know if they were adjusting or not. But this, if it doesn't come new in the parts kit, we're going to disassemble it, we're going to wire wheel it, we're going to clean out this opening here and lube it up, and we're going to take this out, we're going to clean the threads as best we can, and we're going to lube it all up before we put it back together. So now, the last piece we have here is going to be up here. This little piece, that everything that you attach after the shoe goes on this side. All the springs and everything else go on this side of this little clip. These normally do not come in a hardware kit, so these go over to the wire wheel as well. Now, just for reference, you can take this parking brake lever off the cable if you like. Sometimes it's a little bit of a bitch to get it back on. I usually leave it on. I might come over here with a wire wheel on a drill and just clean it up a little bit. These here, the backing plates, if they're real rusted, you might want to get a wire wheel on a drill and bring it in and clean them out. Otherwise, you want to wash it down with some brake clean and get it clean. What I usually do is I'll wash this down with brake clean, then I'll come in with one of my nylon drill brushes and just clean out anything that's really gunked up on, and I'll just take a screwdriver and I'll scrape any big chunks of scourge and grease or anything that might be in there. These are just dirty in general. No evidence of my wheel cylinders right here leaking. You just want to check around the rubber caps. Make sure there's no seepage. There doesn't appear to be any seepage. Doesn't appear to be any heavy rust on the backing plate that will be of concern. But when we do clean it out, you have a pad here, a pad here. You can see there's a little bit of shiny metal right here, and a little shiny there, and a little shiny there. There's 1, 2, 3 on this side, 1, 2, 3 on this side. And what they do is that's here, here, and here on the brake shoe. And that's where the brake shoe rides. So when the brake is actuating and moving in and out in this direction, it slides on that. And if you ever notice an old Jeep with drum brakes in the rear, when you take your foot on or off the brake, you hear like a little squeak, just a little squeak coming from the back. That's where that squeak is coming from. It's the shoes riding against the backing plate, and it's just a lack of lube that's there. And we're going to lube that up before we put everything back together as well. While I'm cleaning this up, I'm going to clean the axle flange face, hub face, whatever you might call this face here and around here, because that's where the rust tends to build up as well, which makes the drum hard to get on and off. We'll clean that up good, and we'll also lube that. You can see I do have some white grease on the lug nuts, which I know is not a suggested thing, and a lot of people don't like when I do that, but I'm in the Northeast, everything rusts, and you know, if your concern is that you're not getting proper torque on your lug nuts, you know, up the torque 10-15 pounds on your lug nuts, and they're not going to come off because you got some white grease on there, but they're also not going to get frozen on where you have a problem getting them off. So I'm going to go get my box of brake parts. I'm going to clean up the other parts, and I'll be with you in a minute. I'm going to clean my hands up a little bit. We'll be right back. I mean, if you want to go crazy and use power brushes or anything like that, you can. I have done that in the past. This really isn't too bad once I hit it with the brake cleaner and just a little cheapo Harbor Freight wire brush here. Pretty much you want to just make sure this is free of any, you know, like scaling rust. Make everything go back together much easier, and it'll make future removal much easier. All right, so I got a box of brake parts here from Power Stop. This is the rear brake kit, and I believe that the kit that I bought for this Jeep Cosmo, the 2000 Jeep Cherokee, is the coated one. So they're pretty much factory replacements, but the drums are coated to prevent rust, because we know it's New York and Jeeps rust in New York. What are you gonna do? What do we got in the box? We got some air. Now I did a video about 5 or 6 years ago putting Power Stop brakes on one of the Suburbans that we had at the time, and I didn't know anything about Power Stop brakes. Not a lot of people did, because they just weren't available anywhere. And I'm cruising Amazon, and I see they had this one-click. They used to have these specials called one-click specials, and it was like a one-click brake special where it was on sale, one item into your cart, and it was all the parts you needed for a full brake job. And I figured they were Chinese knockoffs. And in my first video, I actually said it didn't really say Made in America all over it, and figuring they were Chinese knockoffs that would hopefully get me by. And it turned out they were really good brakes. They worked really well. I really liked them. A lot of them are made or designed in the U.S. I don't know if everything's made in the U.S. It might be. I didn't research it any more than that, because when I emailed Power Stop to say, hey, I'm doing a couple projects, would you like to partner or sponsor with me? I don't want a paid endorsement. I was just hoping they would just send me some brakes, to be honest with you. And they actually got back to me and declined, which I kind of put me off a little bit, because they have done sponsorships with a lot smaller channels, so I guess they just don't like me as a person or the way I do my videos. Well, oh well. Either way, I actually liked their brakes, and I've had success with their brakes, and I've used them several times over the years, and I've done videos on them, and I've always paid for the parts, and I guess I'm paying for the parts again this time. So you're going to get my honest opinion, because I paid, and I got in the box all my stuff, but I do have a broken bag of hardware. Luckily the box in the bottom is still intact, so all my pieces that fell out of the broken bag of hardware are still in there, and they gave me some stickers so that I could advertise for them, adding a little insult to injury, I guess. So we got our bag of brake parts. Should be all your springs and clips to do both sides. Hopefully everything that I need is in here. The bag was just broken open. Not a big deal, but you get a hardware kit with it, which is important. You also get an adjuster, right? An adjuster, a new cable, a new bottom springy thing. Remember when we were taking that bottom spring and I had to punch it out, and a new piece. So that whole bottom piece that I had to punch out all comes in the new adjuster pack. One's a left and one's a right. Let's see if there's any indication over which one is which. One's a 19 and one's a 20, which means one's a left and one's a right. And we're going to have to try to figure out which one is which. And we should be able to do that from the adjuster. And grab the adjuster. All right. And you can see this adjuster is, right, lefty loosey, righty tighty, and they'll be backwards, the adjusters. So this one's lefty loosey, righty tighty. Let me go get my adjuster. So the adjuster from the right rear, passenger side rear, is also lefty loosey, righty tighty. So lefty loosey, righty tighty. So I know that this one here that I opened up, which is the 20, is going to be my right side, and this one, the 19, should be opposite. It should be reverse thread on the adjuster, and that's going to be my left side. So I'm going to put my left side away for now. I'm going to put one of these drums away for now, and let's see what's in the box. We should have, this is the Evolution series coated brake drums. Right, there's an either or on these Jeeps, a 9 or a 10-inch brake drum. These should be the 9-inch drums, and they look to be the 9-inch drums. Now, when I've done drum brakes before on the older cars, like the K5 or the Chevelle or something, I do take the drum that I get out of the box usually. I wash it down really good, hit it with a wire wheel, wash it down really good again, and then I give it a couple coats of paint on the outside so it doesn't rust. These Power Stop brakes come coated, so they're coated inside and out, and they're not supposed to rust. Only time will tell on that. But nothing fancy on the rotors other than the coating. They're pretty much a stock replacement. Nothing fancy on the drums, rather. They're pretty much a stock replacement. And the brake shoes as well. So the brake shoes come in a package like this. Okay, you got, there should be two and two. So that's going to be 2 long shoes and 2 short shoes. And there are, and I'll show you what I mean by the long and short. All right, so here's your long shoe, where your brake shoe is just a little bit longer, and here's your short shoe, where the material is a little shorter. Short goes on the front, big goes on the back. The longer one goes on the back, so big back. Just remember big back. And there's the pair that you need. And it's got 2 of the springs that are going to go right above that adjuster. I don't know why these don't go in the spring kit and they come with the shoes. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but heck, I'm not a brake shoe manufacturer. What do I know? All right, so if you remember, we had this guy here on the bottom of the brake shoe. So how the new brake shoes come, is with a pin already in it, so you don't have to reuse or bang in your other one. So the pin's already in there to the right depth, which means there's a left and a right big back brake shoe. So make sure you grab the right one, and then you need to disassemble this one, right, and take your lever and your spring off. You're not going to reuse your pin, but you are going to reuse this. Is the only spring that the kit does not come with, so you're going to reuse this spring and this lever. So this lever, this spring, my stabilizer or equalizer bar, whatever you might call it, that goes in between the two, and my little top pivot ear, these are all going to go over to the bench grinder, and I'm going to take the Y wheel on the bench grinder and I'm going to clean all these up so that I'm starting with nice, fresh, clean stuff, so it all goes together nice and easy. Alright, so when I turned over the other kit, it actually does come with the lever that I cleaned off on the wire wheel. Alright, so we can use a new lever. Alright, so let's figure out how this goes together. We know that the lever is going to go on it like this, right? And the spring dicky is going to go like this, so it's going to hook over the lever, onto it like that, and spring on, right? Is that the way we did it, or was this way? It was this way. So the spring was under. Spring was under. And you got to sort of spring the spring to get it onto there, like that. Right, so I think we could put this down, spring on, and then get the lever on. That might make more sense. So where does that go over the lever? Goes over the lever like that. This has got to turn. So that it fits in the keyway. What if we go this way? Put the spring down, put that over into the opening, and then bring that up and around. That's the way it goes. Just like that. Oh, look at that. And there was a spring in there too, and I'm using the old spring. Heh. What do you know? If I looked a little bit better, I would have realized everything was in there, so I didn't need to clean my original spring. I got a new one. Alright, so that's all good. Is use a little lube. You could use a little white grease. You could use a little brake parts lube. But when it comes to brakes, I am a fan of using some lube. So I'm going to take some lube on the stud there, and I'm going to wipe off the excess. Don't worry, everybody gets all bent out of shape. Rag here. Alright, and now we're going to put that in, slide it into the hole, and then we're going to pick up the spring and pop the spring around, and that is done. So now I'll take my rag and I'll wipe off my excess lube, just like that, and that one is ready to go. So now if I take this pad like this, and or shoe, I keep calling it a pad, it's a shoe, and I grab a shorty, which the other two shorties should be the same, and they're going to go like that. So here's our adjuster. I'm going to get this ready. This is the adjuster. I am going to unscrew it. Goes all the way through. Goes all the way through. I'm going to unscrew it, and I'm going to put, you could use white grease here. For years I used white grease. Okay, then you're going to put it in all the way, but you're not going to tighten it. You want to leave it a little loose. Then that excess that we just took off, we're going to put on the other end of it. I'm going to slide that in there. Make sure we got it in there. Let's take a little extra in the hole, because this is where the adjusters stop working, when they stop working. Alright, so we got our adjuster there. Alright, so now when these were together, it's going to go this way, because this is the threaded end, right? Yeah, that's the thread. Nope, the threaded end has got to go. The threaded end has to go away from the lever, because this has to be the same distance, because this has to engage with the teeth. So that always has to be the same distance. This end, where it threads out, is going to be on this side, because it doesn't have to change the distance. So I've never actually done it off, but I have heard from some individuals that if you do it off, it's a little bit easier. So we're going to try doing it off. And you have these. Now remember these? These came with the drums and they came in the hardware kit, so you got an extra set of these. But these guys just connect the two brake shoes together from a big hole on that side to this hole on that side. And that's all they do, is just hold the two shoes together. And that should make it a whole lot easier to get back together. I don't know, I've never done it this way. So I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew what I was doing. Now you got this one. This one should slide right like that, but does it go like that, or does it go like that? That is the question. You see, that's why you take a picture, because I don't remember which way it went. Like I said, if you do drum brakes all the time, this is easy. If you do them every once in a while, like most do-it-yourselfers, not as easy. But if you have to, you could always refer back to the other side. So I just referred to the photo I took with my phone, and it's like that. So that goes there. This one is going to pop up in there, and this is going to go on the stud, and the tension of this on the stud is going to hold this in place. I like to get a little lube back here, so you could put it on the shoe just like that, and sometimes that little lube helps hold this in place so it doesn't keep popping off on you. But that's metal to metal. I like just a little lube there, and then we can go over to the car. All right, so right down here you'll see the little rubber plug, and what you want to do is, before you get started, being they gave you a new rubber plug, we want to pop this one out. We could always pop the new one in after, because we might adjust from the front or we might adjust from the back. So I'm going to pop that plug out. I'm just going to give another little, to make sure I get any of the scaling out of where the plug goes in. You don't want that scaling inside, just so we can get our new plug in good. So we're ready to go now. Don't be alarmed if you have extra parts in your hardware kit. Oftentimes they tend to cover a bunch of different applications at the same time. So now before we get these pads up and in, what I like to do is go through my lube process, which I take some silicone lube and I put it on and in the boot. I get like a glob like that, and I just go in the boot there on both sides. And that's it for the silicone lube. And then I'm going to take some anti-seize carefully without turning it to the Tin Man. Everybody knows how that goes. And I am going to put some anti-seize in the slider locations. And the reason why I use the anti-seize here rather than the brake parts, the ceramic brake parts lube, is because this tends to stay a little more. If I don't have any anti-seize available, I have used white grease with a lot of success. So those 6 spots is all you need, and look at that. Look at that. I don't know how I got it on my hand, but I got it on my hand. All right, where's my rag? Freaking anti-seize. All right, try to work as clean as possible, but you know, you don't have to go crazy. Oh, up in here, okay, I'm gonna lube that afterwards, and the only reason why I'm doing it afterwards is because when I lube it before, I tend to get it all over. I tend to get shit all over me. So, now, taking these shoes, I should be able to open them up just enough to hold them in place and hook the parking brake lever into the opening on the top shoe, and then take the shoes and plop them up there just to hold them in place for now. Now I can take my cleaned off equalizer or stabilizer bar. I know the thick end's got to go that way and the thin end's going to go that way. Okay, here too, I just like to take a little bit of brake juice on the ends like that. And we're going to grab our spring with the clip end down, slide it in, and I'm going to try to just finagle it in place. Pull this one away like that, and just get that laying in place like that. So now what I like to do is get the shoes up against the backing plate so that they're not bouncing around and I don't start getting anti-seize all over the place. How did I get it on my fingernails now? See what I mean? Not the anti-seize. So we're going to take one of the retainer pins, springs, and little clippy dickies here, and it's going to go in like that. We're going to put our pin in, feel around for the hole. All right, if you get it set up like this next to you, then you can come over here and push the pin through, hold it with your finger in the back, and then with this, slide it in, and try to find the hole there. Okay, and we did. And now we can pop our shoe back up there, and we lost a spring on our equalizer bar, which is okay. That spring fell out from our equalizer bar when we pulled the shoes off to get that on. So We'll just send that bar back to where it's supposed to be. Now what I want to do is get the pin retainer and spring in on, where is this anti-seize coming from? I didn't touch it. All right, so I'm going to put my pin in through the back. Easiest way to do this is to reach up and over. And now your shoes are going to stay against, and you can start with squeezing your cable, knocking it out. Of course. Of course, of course, of course. So it looks like it's easier to hook the cable and then push it into the hole that it goes into in the brake pad or brake shoe. I keep saying pad. Why do I keep saying pad? Looks like I'm fighting with myself for no reason, because I could stick this spring in here to hold this guy in place. That, then I could pull this like that. All right, let me move that camera, show you what happened here. All right, so I'm fighting with myself trying to get this guy to stay in there, and pretty much if you just take this spring and put it in the hole, that holds that in there. See, I just knocked it out because I moved the spring to show you. But that will hold it in there. Let me see if I can not move the camera too much and move this and show you. So you have it down like that, and now it's holding it in the hole, and you can push up on the bottom one and hook your ring on the top. So now to get this shoe to stay on there, oh, remember this was the first off, so it's the last on. So this one here is going to go on first. So we're going to take our brake spring pliers, and we're going to hook it like that. I'm going to put it like that, and boom, it's on. Now on this side, same thing. I'm going to take brake spring pliers using this end, hook it on here, make sure the shoe is where it's supposed to be. And now you can make sure they're in there like that. All right, so once you got everything on, if you want, you can put a little bit of lube in here on the pivot. You could spray some kind of creamy lube on the pivot there. I like to just put a little in like that, which is fine. Right, now you got your adjuster, so I'm going to try to get the camera down. So I'm going to try to get the camera down enough to show you the adjuster and how the adjuster works. So see how it'll turn, right? And as I turn this, it pushes the shoes out. So when you see somebody, right, doing the adjuster, they're taking the spoon, they're putting it in the hole in the back, and that's what they're turning. See? And then when they turn it back the other way, they're just turning it the other way. So in this one, going down, right, a downstroke with the spoon is going to bring it out a little bit. So we need to know that for when we adjust it. And that what it does is, as that wheel turns and grabs on this hook and ratchets on this hook, it's bringing them out a little bit. So we can put the drum on at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some more anti-seize, and we're going to go, and we're going to be pretty liberal with the anti-seize. Alright, so we want to make sure we're getting it on the snout sticking out, and then we want to make sure that we don't have to be so crazy with it on the really the axle face. Call it the hub face if it was the front, but this portion here where the drum can have a tendency to stick to it. So just a thin coating on here will give the next guy a fighting chance, either servicing the brakes, doing the shoes over again, which it takes shoes a real long time to wear out. But you might have to replace a parking brake cable, or any reason why axle seal, any reason why you might have to take the drum off. You want to be able to get it off without damaging it, because you saw we did beat it with a hammer to get it off. We didn't damage it, but there's always that chance of damage. And now we can take the drum, we can put the drum on. So if you wanted to, you could clean the surface off with some brake clean. We didn't touch them, and they're not covered in oil because they're in a bag and they have a coating on them, so we should be good just to slide them on. Now you can see how it's going there. So what I'm going to do is I want to start adjusting it so that the shoes come out and sort of center themselves, and you want to keep spinning until you get it to stop, and then you want to back it off. So let me move the camera, we'll show you. So underneath on the back side, I'm doing it blind, so I'm going to feel around for the slot. Okay, put your spoon in. You can do this with a screwdriver, and remember, we tested it. Going down brings it out, so you want to go down, and you get a couple clicks out of it, and then give it a turn. Now you can see how it's taking a lot of clicks to get it close. So what you could do, one of the things that I have done just to make it easier, is turn it out by hand. All right, and then take the drum, put it on, and see how snug I am. Okay, I could go a little more by hand, so a couple more turns, put it on, and now it's getting close. So now I'm close. So now I could take my spoon, put my spoon in, feel for the wheel. See how nice and tight I am now. Alright, so now that's nice and tight. See how much effort it takes me to turn it a couple times, which centers it. And now I'm going to go the other way, which is down a couple of clicks, well, up a couple of clicks. Oh, that's real tight. Okay, so it's up a couple of clicks. And now you want to keep backing it off. Okay. Nice. So I could still hear the brake pads or the brake shoes on the drum, but I don't really have any drag. It spins nice and easy, and they're adjusted good right there. You could hear it, but it's really not dragging. That's exactly where you want to be. So now all I'm going to do, and when you are adjusting that, just you know, I did it with the wheel off. You really should do it with the wheel on, or at least run a lug nut down. So what I did do is I made sure I was holding the drum tight to the hub while I was adjusting it. You keep pushing it in that way. So now what I'm going to do is, again with the anti-seize, I'm going to go right here. All right, around where the drum meets the axle snub, and the same thing just in between the lug nuts. These are coated, so it shouldn't be as big of a deal as it would normally be if they were regular bare steel. You know, it's a little bit more of a concern. So pretty much just go around the lug stud and then in between them, just like that. All right, I really don't usually put anti-seize on lug nuts. I actually like white grease for lug nuts. These lug nuts got plenty of grease on them, probably on the inside of the lug nut themselves. So that's it. This side's done. I could put the wheel in and repeat the process on the other side. So the battery went dead while I was time-lapsing the driver's side, but got them both on, put the wheels on, and then double-checked my my adjustment, my drag, and got it to where, like I said, you could hear it sort of whoosh, 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 but it didn't give any drag on the wheel. Tires on, lugs took down, went for a ride, and it was much better than it was previously. So I know I finally had rear brakes. Went for a ride a few blocks, retorqued the wheels and put it back up in the air, and just gave it a little bit more of an adjustment, applying the brakes, so that I had a little bit more of a rub. So just a slight amount of drag is what I had. So I kept adjusting. I heard it, whoosh, whoosh, no drag, and then just as soon as I got drag on each wheel is where I stopped. Then I went for a ride, and wow, what a difference. It was like driving a different car. So really happy with the way they came out. The power stop brakes I've been using for 5 or 6 years now. This is like the 4th vehicle I put them on. We're going to do the fronts in a different video in a couple weeks when I get a chance to do the fronts. I really like them. I paid for them. I ordered them, paid for them, got the kit in, front and rear. We just did the rear, we're going to do the front. I like the brakes. They didn't want to sponsor the video. They didn't want to send me any brake parts. They sent me a sticker. Got a power stop sticker. Put it on my toolbox, I guess. But oh, I'm leaning on the remote for another vehicle and I see lights flashing. But You know, really, it's an unbiased review because they didn't send me nothing for free. Paid for it with my own shekels, and I really like the way they work, the way they fit. Everything fits the way it should, and they last for a long time. My wife could not defeat the heavy-duty truck and tow power stop brakes that we put on her '03 Yukon XL when we had that. She drove it a shit ton, probably 50,000 miles on those front pads. She was usually eating front pads in 20,000 miles or so, and she could not kill those front pads. So I really like them. These are the standard replacement, coated so that they don't rust, because you know Jeeps rust. But really like them, and that's my review. That's my install. I do go a little crazy with the anti-seize and the lube and things like that, but you know what? They work, and they work for a long time. They don't get bound up, and it keeps the rust at bay. That's just the way I do them. You can do them differently. Let me know how you do them in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.